Hi guys, hope everyone is doing great and thanks for joining in. So myself Divakar, I'm a technology analyst at Infosys with almost 5 years of experience on backend and other cloud technologies. And it's been great pleasure for joining in for this 30 days, 30 expert show at Azure Developer Community. And so let's like today we are going to see about Azure Arc services and how it has helped a lot of business and end users, and we'll see how to utilize it for and how it is beneficial for others too. Okay, so without further ado, let's proceed with it. So, what is Azure Arc Services? So, that's the first basic question actually. So, Azure Arc Services is a specific set of service that's been offered by Microsoft in order to deal with a specific issue. And the issue is before pandemic strike. Okay, so most of the organizations were mostly using non-digital ways of platforms. Like most were using on-premise services, on-premise computer servers, and they were handling their own data, which was effective but not highly good enough for managing large volumes of data, and it had its own issues, right? So what Microsoft did is they brought in something called as Azure platform. Okay, they linked these services together, both on premise as well as the um, this one, Azure cloud stacks. Okay, so this helps the business mostly on the digital driven business furthermore, and it was also helping us to manage data flow efficiently, and it was also helping us in the part of security, audit policies, and so far. And the goodness about this is like with Microsoft comes with its perks. Microsoft takes care of your security things, and they streamline your business flows and stuffs. Okay, so yeah, let's see what happened initially. Initially, before the COVID struck, what happened is like businesses were mostly utilizing the on-premise services, right? So with these, the problem is the scalability, okay, and the way of processing data was a bit harder. So you cannot scale on peak demand times, and you always need someone to monitor and manage these servers. And let's say deploying a new service, let's say I want to spin up a new database. Okay, it is not highly easy functionality, right? But what people do is people were using to move to cloud, right? So cloud was another best option. It gives you scalability, security. It's easier for access, convenient to manage it. But again, cloud is also costlier. So once I move into cloud, what happens with my existing bare systems? They are of no use, right? So what Azure did is Azure made a platform called as Azure Fabric platform, which was helping to onboard your on-premise devices into Azure Fabrics. Okay, even you can integrate your IoT devices, so you will get regular software updates, maintenance, as well as audit policies, security threats. All these things were handled by the on-premise services itself. Okay, so before that, we would before moving into these technology stacks, what usually happened is people were stuck with a single form of data, right? So it's not easy to directly migrate to cloud, but once they migrated, it was very hard to govern these policies, both internal as well as public servers. So basically, these servers were totally isolated, and controlling them and managing them were totally hard. Okay, even operating them on a scale with let's say my particular organization is around India. Okay, we have multiple tenancy places. Okay, in that case, managing my server from a different location was a bit tedious work, but Azure helped us to solve all these issues. Okay, so let's see how it helped us. So what happens is I have to get a subscription for this Azure Arc platform. Okay, basically it comes along with the Azure subscription, and once I install the required dependencies, my particular server at my on-premise gets connected to the Azure cloud platform. Okay, the because of this, whatever securities, whatever the audit policies, whatever the systems, the Azure cloud got it, we also get the same with the Azure Arc services also. Okay, and the good thing about all these things is you can directly control this entire service using Azure admin services itself. Okay, all you need to do is just log into your admin dashboard, and you'll be able to control your Azure cloud as well as your Azure on-premise services. It's that easy to manage it. Okay, also this particular system also helped us with managing a few other changes actually. So you can also connect with multi-cloud. Multi-cloud in the sense like, let's say like I'm pulling some data from AWS service or Oracle service. Yeah, Azure Arc Services also provided different pipelines and management systems to connect with the multi-cloud systems. So your businesses can deal with other cloud platforms or third-party data easily. Also, onboard systems like onboard on-premises systems can also be used efficiently. You can monitor them, track them. You can also update push policies to the services easily. Also to the edge nodes. So edge nodes are technically like your IoT devices, which are used to do tracking, like any of your endpoints, let's say businesses, vehicles, or any sort of robotic automations that happens within your organization level. So all these things can be controlled. They are brought together, and all these services are combined using Azure Arc services. Okay, so yeah, it provides you with multiple services, right? So end of the day, you get everything at your fingertips. You can control, you can manage, you can push services within Azure cloud. Okay, so yeah, here, why should I prefer Azure Arc? So the thing is like, let's say like I wanted to perform some sort of a real-time computation. Okay, let's talk about some sort of AI based models. Okay, here my onboard servers are not capable. Let's assume that my onboard servers are not highly powerful enough. In that case, what I could do is I could push these data into Azure cloud, get them processed, and get them back into my servers where I could use it locally for performing other things. So all the training and the computation process runs over the Azure data framework itself. Okay, so there are several data pipelines that are built in, including your data transfers and networking protocols, where you get fast lanes for transferring data, and they are pretty efficient in managing it too. And then these services can be extended to various environments, right? So like there are multiple architectures, like ARM architectures, i336. So all these architectures, Azure support all these architectures where you can perform onboard computation, and also adopting various cloud practices and implementing services actually. Then so by default, the cloud provides us with the different stacks like infrastructure as a service, container, serverless. Also now Azure helps us to connect with our on-premise computers too. So with this, the app team can effectively manage and deploy and test all their code into their onboard services, which can be later migrated to the central data centers. It is very easy, and maintenance is highly efficient and quicker too. So, the let's say like I wanted to scale up. Okay, let's say like I have a database service that's running on premise, but I need it to be a multi-tenancy support with with some sort of a snapshot and backup services like master slave configuration. Well, technically, I could do it with my local, but instead of that, the best way to implement is like I could later migrate the particular database as a service into the Azure Arc. So in that case, I could access it throughout the world with a very less latency, and the backup and all those services are managed by Azure itself. That gives the guarantee of a consistency, compliance, and all these things. It's highly efficient and easy to. And coming back to scalability. So everyone knows all these data centers run over a Kubernetes cluster, right? So Azure, what happens is like it provides a constant support, scalable, and it also updates all these policies throughout your cluster as well as your nodes actually. And it works very seamless that you hardly need to like push a button to apply your policies across your organization. So let's say like you are having a server, okay? It is a Kubernetes cluster, and you wanted to connect with Azure services. So you could use onboard services like Kubernetes, OpenShift, AKS, all these things. You can connect with Azure Arc directly. You can configure them. You can operate them at ease without any extra work actually. So Azure offers you like a AD directory where you can also offer identity protocols for validation and monitoring the user's policies actually. So how does these tools work? How does Azure manage these things? So end of the day, what happens is like once I receive and manage these data, Azure will automatically pull in those data, and we can split it up based upon the resources I need, and I could just process them. Azure also provides you specific low-level hardware controls actually. So it has a proper, you can create a virtual machine database as a service. You can create n number of clusters, containers as a service. You can also manage these clusters using Kubernetes, kube control, all these things. And the governance is highly easy, and these services offer security, monitoring, audit, release management, and source control. So let's say like I have an office at three places in my India. Okay, let's say I am across pan India, but maintaining these servers are pretty hard, right? So once I onboard all these services, all those servers and their services into Azure Arc, okay, coming back to auditing, to release management, to controlling it, everything will be shown inside a Azure Arc dashboard. So let's say like from zone A, if there is any issue, the logs will be sent directly to the centralized servers at Azure Arc, where I could easily notify, where I'll be easily notified, and I could just click with minimum step of button clicks. I could just easily resort it, or find some sort of help from the Azure support community and get it sorted out very easily. It's how it's that efficient it is. So Azure Arc offers us four levels of controls actually. So first one is like inventory setup. So this inventory setup is something like it is going to show you the clusters that are connected to your edge nodes. Okay, so you can control your edge nodes, you can assign roles, you can manage them. Even you will get a graphical UI with the third-party softwares. Else you will get a cloud shell using with you can SSH, you can manage your controls effectively. And for using all these services, you will need some sort of identity management, right? So for that, Azure also gives us a group management groups. Okay, so using this, you can assign different roles based upon the developers and your company needs, and using that, you can effectively control your applications data seamlessly. Because of this very high level of control, it makes your application very secure, and management is also very easy. So this one is like the internal control actually. So you can allocate various policies and enforce them to the resources. So let's say like I want to control my particular team to use only certain resources. In that case, I can issue some tags and control their cost centers and enforce new policies on them. And then this is called as Azure Resource Graph. So using this, I could understand what is happening exactly onto the clusters. So this is basically a query language using which I'll get a basic metadata of what's happening within the cluster. I can understand what are the actions that is undergoing. Based on that, I can make changes to the clusters actually. So in general, everyone would have heard about kube control, but this one is much more easier and effective to understand your cluster's needs actually. And for governance of policies, by default, Azure gives you Azure policies, so using which you can control your state, You can remediate any tickets. You can apply patches with these policies, and no matter what, let's say like whether it is on premise or even at the cloud stack, all these policies will be pushed and they'll be updated regularly. And it's a highly effective and easy way to manage your data actually. And also like it also works with the scale. So let's say like I am building a new application, so all these policies can be pushed with those services along with them actually. And Azure services also come with CI/CD pipelines. So everyone would be using GitHub, right? So in GitHub, you have got these action blocks. So using action blocks, you can build your code, make changes, you can release it, you can deploy them, you can push these containers, all these things you can do it, right? So Azure Arc, what it does is like it gives you services wherein which you could deploy these particular code right into the Kubernetes clusters, either on board or to your on-premise devices directly. It also supports Helm charts for building pipelines, and it also enables like automated deployments easily. You've got Azure AD services for identity protocol over here. So this is a sample diagram of how this particular thing works. So initially, when the developer push the changes into the GitHub, what happens is like the CI/CD pipeline starts building and deploying the files. So what happens is like it will move to the Helm charts. Using Helm charts, it will point to the Azure container registry, where in which the images will be stored, and it can be deployed directly into the production cluster. So this entire action happens seamlessly. It hardly takes few seconds to spin up a new container image over a cluster. It's that easy. And Azure also provides you an endpoint, like a specific dashboard called as a Azure Monitor, where in which you can monitor the cluster performance, and even you can update the services with of the container within the entire cluster. It's that easy for maintaining multiple containers inside a cluster. So you can also here, if you see, you can also deploy the particular app, web app or whatever the app. You can deploy it over the customer's location. So let's say like I have some vehicles with onboard computations that needs to be performed. So it's kind of a edge node device. Okay. So in that case, what I could do is I could build my code locally. Okay, and I could store it over the Azure containers. Okay, from which what happens is like these services push these changes over to my edge nodes. Here you can also push it directly to your other edge nodes of several other locations. So all these things can be effectively done without any downtime. Okay, and speaking of which, this is the Azure Monitor for containers. So here you can see it monitors and tags the list of services that are actively running. It also says warning, also gives you the audit protocols using which you can identify and understand the healthy status of your containers as well as your nodes. Also, you can push the services easily. You can also trigger alerts wherein which you will be notified if there is an unhealthy container or there is an issue with a particular container. You can also log them, and these metrics will be sent to your mail ID, or depending upon your needs, you can move it to a particular network actually. And yeah, end of the day, Azure helps you to collaborate, simplify, and connect. So it helps you to connect all your physical servers as well as your cloud servers seamlessly. Managing the data and transferring them is highly efficient and easier. And nowadays, most of the businesses are providing a hybrid support. So this hybrid support helps us to drive the business effectively, maintaining with a very low cost, and the maintenance is highly less. So here you can see Azure's data profile. So if you see here, this particular thing is a sample example of how Azure is maintaining the data cloud. So this is a data lake profile. where we are managing and storing data on various set of databases services like Postgres, SQL, and other things. And Azure here helps us with the controller API and monitoring, logging, backing up, scaling, patching, provisioning. All these services are controlled and managed by Azure Arc Data Controller. So here, end of the day, the developers are no need to worry about any of these things. Within a click of a button, they can just schedule a backup without a downtime, scaling, and minor patches run seamlessly. You don't need to restart your databases. Like all these minor patches and updates will be running seamlessly without a restart. And provisioning is very easy. Like within a click of a button, you will just get a database as a service actually, and all these things are effectively managed and run over Azure Arc data controllers. So here they use Azure Data CLI. It is a proprietary tool designed and maintained by Azure Data. Also, we use kubectl. That's an open source tool where you can utilize it to manage your Kubernetes clusters actually. So I guess that's it.